So I'll put mine on.
Hey, Omi. It's Karen and I in the virtual studio. And here you are at your Movement for Sustainable Wellness practice. Today's practice focuses on the hips. So meet me on the mat and let's begin. If you have a tendency towards sciatic discomfort, then you might want to elevate your hips for this opening portion or the entirety of our practice. A blanket, a pillow, or even a block is something you could consider. From a comfortable seat, just let yourself settle in, beginning to take deeper, fuller breaths than you have up until now today. Just begin to notice the expression of the face, the expression of the hands, the temperature of the room, the energy of the body. Allowing this next inhale to let you sit up a little straighter. The next exhale to roll your shoulders down the back, hugging together behind the heart. Letting the inhale inflate the belly like a balloon. Opening the connective tissues on the side body and the muscles of the abdomen. Chest, breath, head, all the way stretching it up as fully as you can. Wash the exhale down the back and try again. Filling up a little more fully than you think you can. Sip another breath into the crown and wash it down the back to the exhale. Now that you've established a connection with the breath, lean into that connection, taking 3 breaths more. The sound of your breath is what we return to in our practice. It is what guides our practice without an instructor. So honor your breath as a better guide than me. And I thank you for the opportunity to be your guide this morning. Fluttering eyes open if they did close during that open oxygenating breath. We're going to stretch arms overhead as we inhale this time. And exhale, elbows nice and wide. Repeating that gesture, letting yourself relax and reset as much as you need before breath, stretching up with an inhale. Palms scoop the air beside you, fingertips spark upward and around you, then with the exhale, elbows bent. Use your breath as your guide. Take 2 more full rounds of breath. Awesome opportunity for Ujjayi Pranayama. If you have it in your practice, widening the throat, creating an audible sound through the exhale. Last round of breath here, no rush. Exhale. Resting arms out like a goalpost, elbows in line with shoulders. Let the elbows and hands come a little bit behind the ears so that you feel very open across the chest. Elbows and pinky fingers stretching sideways. Notice here the tension that might arrive in the back or the hips. Elevating your hips can release some of that tension, especially if you feel it in the shoulders. Never take for granted how much flexibility is required just to sit on the ground. Deep inhale, confident in your body. Beautiful. Let the left hand drop down to the ground as the right arm just stretches straight overhead, pushing the ground away from you. Stretch overhead. Feel what happens across the back. Right, and then inhale that left arm back up, drop your right arm with the exhale, push the ground away as you just stretch the left arm directly overhead. Maybe you can feel the shoulder girdle, maybe you notice the muscles across the back connected to the whole body. Wherever you are, both hands come down this time, 2 fingers plugged into the earth, push the ground away, lifting the crown of your head, 2 breaths here. The opening component of any yoga class is about oxygenating the bloodstream, and that is easy to do when we mind our breath, lengthening the inhales, and remaining mindful through the exhales. So release that gentle mudra. Take your left hand at your heart, and if the space around you allows, go ahead and take huge forward arm circles, allowing your fingertips to stay together as you take that shape at least 3 times. On the downswing, we can switch directions, making it backstroke. Again, keeping integrity in the fingers. Jaw soft, mind quiet, just opening up practice today. Stretch the arm up, bend through the elbow. Yes, it is awesome to be alive. I hope that feels good. Both hands on the heart, noticing your heartbeat. You are alive. Left arm will stretch backwards into a backstroke here. Opening up with at least 3 of those large circles, listening to clicking or popping of the joints, noticing how your body is responding to this particular season. On the downswing, go ahead and reverse, forward circle, keeping integrity through the fingers, repeating it at least 3 times. So if it's a sequence for the hips, why are we warming up our shoulders? Hand stretches up into the air. Yes, my body is so connected. That tension in the low back is going to tighten the hips, and you're going to feel it by the shoulders being pulled down from that tightness. There's large muscles across the back that connect to our hips. So just roll your shoulders back in place. Start to notice how connected your shoulders and your back are to any tension in your hips. And then alternate the shoulders so that you get more of an infinity loop or 8 shape. Just letting yourself rock and roll here for at least 30 seconds longer, maybe switching direction, leading with the opposite shoulder. We just want to warm up the connective tissues, loosen everything up so that any emotional or kind of energetic tension can release. Nice, really good work. So if you use the prop out of extra caution rather than necessity, you might remove it now. You are welcome to stay on a flexible prop like a blanket or a pillow if you're worried about developing a sciatic tension or sciatic sensitivity. What's going to happen is we're going to stretch our left leg out and explore this half butterfly shape. And the first thing you're going to explore is how your hips connect to the ground. If you can feel your sit bones, if you need to adjust the wobbly bits beneath you. And then your heel outstretched. You're listening underneath the knee, potentially using a prop if this is really uncomfortable work for you. But rotating the ankle and lubricating that whole IT band, that junction at the ankle here, drawing your attention from your hip to your toe as you just feel that outstretched energy of the leg. Finding stillness in the foot, stretch arms overhead. And we're just going to bow forward. One exhale here, noticing how the hips have a tendency to lift. So as you inhale, stretching upright, anchor the hips down beside you, engage the low back, pushing the bottom into the ground, and then fold forward instead. You might not have the same depth that time, but you have better integrity of the hips, which is going to more effectively stretch the low back and lubricate the hip flexor. So lifting up, hands come through heart center. You're going to look away from the outstretched leg, listening to the inner thigh, noticing the back, turn towards the outstretched leg, noticing the back, maybe listening to the bent knee. And when you're ready, stretch the arms overhead, letting your arms frame the outstretched leg, stretch over. We're hanging here for 3 exhales, so use your breath to hold that count. Dropping the forehead towards the leg, relaxing the toes unless you need a little more stability in the knee, and then flexing the foot is going to help protect that. Use this last exhale to sink a little bit lower. Awesome. If you can get your forehead to touch your knee, you could always stack fists to make that happen. Try not to put pressure directly on the knee though. A little bit above or a little bit below is going to be a lot safer. So tuck the chin, roll upward, and here comes our first playful exercise. So this is going to look different for everyone. Don't get too confused if it's new for you. The bent knee is your anchor. There's a tendency for the foot to get in the way, so just be open. Pointing the outstretched leg, you're going to lift the hip off the ground so that, see how that inside leg moves? You come into a pigeon shape. And I'm still facing you. You might face straight into pigeon, but you're going to come back facing forward back into that half butterfly shape. Awesome. I hope that went well, and we have 3 times now to try it again. Rolling from that outstretched leg, pointing through the toes into a pigeon shape. It's up to you if you want to readjust this leg underneath you to fully drop into pigeon. What we're really working on is that rolling gesture. So you might not even go into a full pigeon for any reason. You might just rock and roll here. Try at least one more time. Seeing how that feels to roll into pigeon from half butterfly. And then draw that leg in, seated for Sukhasana, palms open. We take just 3 breaths. Inhale deeply, belly inflates, chest lifts, crown of the head receives the breath, which washes down the back through the exhale. Good work. A practice of stillness between movement is going to most effectively lubricate the joints here today. So stretch your opposite leg out, right leg out for this half butterfly exploration. And almost immediately just start rotating that ankle and feeling into what's happening down the leg. Notice how your sits bones are oriented, whether you can sit comfortably here as compared to a simple cross-legged position. And then find stillness in the outstretched leg. Inhale, stretch up. Exhale, forward fold. First time, just honoring how the body works, right? Noticing that the hips have a natural tendency to lift as you fold forward. Inhale, stretch overhead and consciously anchor, engaging the low back to push the bottom into the ground, keeping sits bones connected as you exhale and fold. Perhaps not getting the same amount of depth this time, but keeping better integrity to stretch the low back and release through the hips. One more exhale here, not feeling rushed. You'll inhale upward, drawing hands through heart center, and we will turn away from the outstretched leg, looking over your left shoulder, facing away from the leg. Listen to the inner thigh, notice the back. As you inhale, gaze forward and keep it going so that you look towards the outstretched leg, lifting through the inhale, breathing. Noticing the low back, sensations around the knee. Inhale, arms come overhead, and exhale, fold over the extended leg. We're here for at least 3 deep, nourishing breaths. So relax the crown of the head towards the toes, soften the jaw, and let your breath be your guide. Following the exhale, noticing if you could linger here a little longer, noticing how it compares to the experience on the other side. Tuck your chin, roll your body upward, and let's play with lubricating that movement from half butterfly into pigeon. So option to explore it just as you did on the other side, beginning by pointing the outstretched leg to roll that hip forward, right? To draw the top of the thigh onto the mat ultimately to look like a pigeon shape. How much this inner thigh and heel move is really up to you. As you roll over, you could start adjusting by taking the big toe for the shin to become parallel to the mat. That over time is going to give you a fuller expression of pigeon, but you might make a lot of compromises along the way to get that expression. So keeping it there and just working on the rollover is also fine. Take at least one more try, coming into a full pigeon perhaps, and then returning back to that half butterfly shape, noticing if your hip rolled a little more smoothly on one side than the other. And then draw your legs in. Crown of the head stretches up, palms open, 3 deep breaths here. So not only are these deep oxygenating breaths important for our mind body, they're pockets of time to gain mindfulness and presence. It's actually a nice technique when the legs are here in Sukhasana and we had all of that effort moving blood flow up and down the leg to compress them here. They're tied in a little knot. And all of that energy is resettling, all that blood is removing, all of the muscles are relaxing in this state where maybe the connective tissues of the knees or ankles are getting some extra love because of the compression and bend. So draw your ankles behind you, come sitting onto your knees in hero's pose. We'll just be here briefly, sliding our hips from one side of our ankle to the other. And for some of us, this feels really good. You can do it pretty quickly. And for others, it's very new. You kind of want to slide into it and see what's really going on and what's happening. And both tempos are going to serve us. So keep breathing and just move how it feels good for you. Good work. Inhale, sit up onto your knees. Your feet are hip width apart behind you. Your knees are hip width apart behind you. And hands can just be on your hips. Nice. So feel your hips. Notice if you can feel the bone through your skin. If you feel it in the front, can you also feel it in the back? Often we need to look a little more diligently there. And over time, you can just start to get comfortable feeling the ridge of your hips and trusting that there are neurons and connected nerve tissues that help us balance and be strong because we're touching our body. Failure to touch our body will lead to disconnect. So take your right knee, step it out in front of you, and keep a 90-degree angle there, maybe walking your foot out even wider than 90 degrees so that you can start to push both hips forward, opening up. Nice. And notice this might be a lot on your knee. You can fold your mat over or bring a knee pad even. Sensitivity of our joints should not be a reason to not practice yoga. So as you come from this upright shape into a deeper bend, get playful, right? You might even drop your hips towards your heel to get a full shape, going from a deep forward hinge in the hips to a full seated backwards in the hips. So explore what feels good here today. You might even allow your hands to get into the practice, getting a bit more lizard-like. We have just about another 30 seconds in this shape. And when we exit, we're gonna be in that forward motion, hips pressing forward, 90-degree angle at least here. Stepping it forward to make sure you're safely aligned, knee and ankle. Hips and shoulders squared forward. Begin to tuck the back toe. Tucking the back toe gives you a stability to actually lift the knee up and off the ground. So try that. It is a strength building move. You're going to use that little strength building move to actually draw your knee a little further away from the heel. And then when you relax your toe, you should feel a little more opening on the inner thigh and quadricep. So play with that maybe one more time, stepping your knee a little further back, opening it up into that shape. This is nuanced stuff. You might not see a huge difference on the screen, but what we're feeling in our body is intense. So tuck your toe behind you, step your knee back where it started, and straighten your front leg, sitting your hip to the ground or in that direction if it's available for you. Good work. So bend to the right knee, coming back where we were onto our knees. Bring both knees underneath us, stretch arms overhead. And through heart center. One more round of breath here. And then let our left leg step in front of us. So here we are in a gentle horse pose. And the objective is just to play with drawing the hips forward, right? Maybe straightening the leg as you drop back. Make sure that you're working with a nice wide angle, at least 90 degrees up in front of you as you push both hips forward and then roll the hips back. Coming into something that is easy and playful for you, I invite you to listen to the hips, listen to the ankles, listen to the knees, see what kind of gesture feels good. About 30 seconds longer in this exploration, so personalize it to you. Bounciness might come naturally, whereas a stiller breath connected, a stiller movement connected to your breath might serve you better. And when we do finish the moving exploration, we end with our hips pressing forward so that we can tuck the back toe. engaging some stability that allows us to lift the knee off the ground, checking that out here, noticing if it feels a little different one side to the other. And then when you're ready, lift the knee and drop it a little farther away from this front heel so that you have more opening in the quadriceps and inner thigh. And maybe lift it up and step it a little further away. You can relax your toe when you found a new space to really breathe into that, dropping the hips downward. This is not easy. Honor your breath. Honor your body. One more round of breath here. So that as you release, you'll tuck the toes, returning the knee safely where it was to straighten the front leg, sitting your hips down or in the direction of your heels if it's available to you. Bending through that front leg, come to rest on your knee and bring both knees together. Knees hip width apart, stretch arms overhead with an inhale. And exhale, elbows wide. Inhale, arms stretch up. Exhale, elbows wide. Nice. Last one, inhale, arms come up, palms touch, and they drop to heart center. Super good work. So cross your ankles behind you, have a seat onto your bottom, and we are going to rock the baby. This is the #1 posture to help evolve your pigeon expression or your full split Hanumanasana. So take your left foot into your hand, and if you can hold it into your hand, roll your shoulders behind you, feel really good. Over time, the sole of the foot is going to stamp inside of the right arm. Sole of the foot right onto your bicep or anywhere you can reach. Sit up once you get that shape and then reach around your opposite knee to interlace your fingers there. Sit up the whole time. Draw the shin towards your chest. Lift the foot in line with the shoulder if you can. Notice what's going on in the working leg. I like to keep the leg below me bent because I feel more stable, but you could certainly outstretch it if that was to help you. The first portion of this exercise is literally just finding the shape, hugging this baby, this leg of ours, this left root. So lift the crown of the head, draw your chest towards your leg, and start to see how much you can rock the baby. Just wiggling from the shoulders, rocking this leg in your arm. Trying to actually turn one way and then the other if that's available for you. Repeat this 2 more times, at least. Seamlessly moving into the second gesture, which is bowing forward and rocking back. Bowing forward and rocking back. And of course, I don't want you to roll over, but you can play with the momentum if you're not too tight, if you feel safe here. Try to keep the shoulders rolled behind you and the chest lifted the entire time. That's where the effort is. So we're going to combine all 3 of those movements to make a really large shape, maybe a circle, maybe it's more of a cylinder, ellipsis for you, or a weird clunky octagon. Whichever direction you started with, go ahead and switch directions, noticing the brain takes a moment to send those motor neurons into action. And then last expression here, lift the shin. Imagine you're smelling a bouquet of beautiful toes and take all 10 fingers around your foot. See if you can touch your toe to your chest or your toe to your forehead. Right, these 2 gestures help us prepare for the final expression of this pose, which is taking your heel over your head, right? Which isn't going to happen for me today, but I am going to imagine it. Not my head scooping underneath it, but it washing over my head, because the imagination is where it begins. To take the top of this foot that we've been working with, place it onto your inner thigh so the sole of the foot is shining up, and check out your half lotus shape here. Half lotus is very easy to achieve after doing Rock the Baby, and it is similar to both pigeon and other shapes. So enjoy your half pigeon, your half lotus here by stepping the bottom leg out, noticing if perhaps you can get the bottom leg on top for a full lotus. Never rush that if it's not in your practice, but just something to check out here. So release your half lotus shape. Take 3 breaths here in seated Sukhasana. Beginning our work on the other side now. You'll take your left foot into your hand. If you can hold your foot, interlace all 10 fingers around the foot and roll your shoulders back behind you, smiling that you are this flexible and confident in your body. If you're able to move on, the sole of your foot will plug into the bicep of the right arm, and your left arm will reach around the knee to interlace with the opposite hand. Lifting the chest, rolling the shoulders behind you, bringing the leg up to the shoulders. Draw it inward and be still for several more breaths here as we open the hamstrings and the low back for rocking the baby on the right side. Chest presses towards the leg as we begin to rock side to side from the shoulders, maybe starting to look in opposite directions. Move as quickly as your body allows. The movement, the repetitive movement is what's really lubricating the joint. So as little as you move or as much as you move matters less than moving in the same way multiple times at any tempo. From rocking the baby, taking it at least one more time in each direction, you'll seamlessly go into bowing forward and rocking back. Bowing forward and rocking back. Using your breath, keeping the chest lifted. It's normal to have that tension in the middle back. You're building strength. You're overcoming tightness in the hips and hamstrings. So we're combining those two gestures to make a large circle or ellipsis or funky shape for you, honoring that full expression at least 3 times in each direction, so that whichever direction you started with, you might reset and reverse now. Keeping the chest drawing towards the leg, keeping the leg lifted, keep breathing, one more round. And then last expression, lift the toes like a bouquet. Breathe deep, chest draws forward towards the legs, take the foot in the hand, try to draw the thumb to the big toe towards the chest and towards the forehead. These two shapes helping prepare us for the fullest expression, which takes our heel over our head like a headband. So imagine it as you try. And take the top of the foot when you're ready to exit onto the opposite thigh as we drop into our half lotus shape over here. Moving the opposite leg so that the knee can drop down to the ground if you'd like, noticing what's possible. If a full lotus expression is available to you, go ahead and take it. Never rushing into that if it's not already in your practice. Option to release your half lotus shape as we take 3 breaths here. Beautiful work. So perhaps there's tension in the low back. Perhaps there's newness in the lower body. Wherever you're at, down dog and pigeon is going to help balance that out and release it. So unravel your legs. Come onto your knees. Join me in a tabletop shape, hands shoulder width apart, knees hip width apart. Exhale to lift the middle back, drawing your forehead towards your hips, lifting through the middle back as much as you can, squeezing everything out of the lungs. With your inhale, you'll drop the belly, open the throat, and reverse the gesture in the hips, taking your full complete inhale through cow. Exhale, round cat. 3 more like that. Inhale, cow. Really spreading open wide through the bottom. Inhale, rounding, tucking the tailbone. Total reversal of expression in the hips. Drop the belly through the inhale. Open it up. Last one here. Squeeze it out. Beautiful. From that neutral spine, begin to tuck the toes, lift the hips. Here you are in downward facing dog. 30 seconds to play. That might be pedaling the legs left and right. It might be rocking and rolling the rib cage. If you haven't had enough cardio or strength building, you could definitely sneak it in here, hopping from one side of the mat or opening wide and stepping narrow. Lots of cardio options here. Breathing steadily, maybe just getting your first good down dog of the day, very still. That's all right too. Wherever you are in your down dog, balance out your exploration. Let your heels root down to the earth. And audibly exhale with your next release. 2 or 3 more times, letting any sound out that might come. Sigh, shrug, reverberated lips, even a little song or a scream are welcome here. Shake yes, yes, yes. I'm awesome. Letting your crown of your head drop towards the mat. Really shake yes, yes, yes. I'm awesome. Maybe say it out loud for those in the room to hear it. Inhale, right leg nice and high. And exhale, right leg below you into pigeon, bending that knee to reach towards the front hand. Maybe the ankle similarly stretches. Point the toe behind you. Get the maximum expression, getting the top of the thigh onto the mat, trying to touch the perineum to the mat over time. We have 1 minute to hang out in pigeon. Sitting upright is going to do the most for our hips, but settling our face down to the mat allows our back to relax, stretches the crown and spine, and creates a very safe space for our heart. So just breathe steadily here, letting your breath be your guide, not attaching to any thought that might enter your mind. Starting to shift from an active stretch into more of a meditative stretch, so that you might let 3 exhales wash over you, letting go any tension, any confusion, any stagnation, anything that doesn't serve you towards being the best version of you possible today. And before leaving this shape, whether you're down towards sleeping pigeon or still sitting upright, just gently roll on and off of that right hip, echoing the work that we did earlier, noticing if we made any impact in our expression already, so that you'll place your hands underneath your shoulders and return back upright, tucking the toes behind you to meet back in downward facing dog, where we don't have as much time to play, but a little while to realign. Make sure you shake yes, 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 and feel balanced between both feet before moving on. Left leg lifts with an inhale. Exhale, left leg below you, bending at the knee, bringing the knee towards the hands, maybe bringing the opposite foot towards the opposite hand as well. Sorry, bringing the left foot towards the right hand as well. So step the back leg out. Make sure you're getting the top of the thigh on the mat, thinking about bringing the perineum to the ground. We have 1 minute to play here in pigeon. So you're welcome to stay upright, which is best for our hips, or to settle down into sleeping pigeon, which lengthens the spine and lets the back relax. Try to embrace this side with the same listening, a non-attachment to any thought that comes to mind. There is a tendency for the second side to be a little less mindful because we might know what to expect, but the reality is what goes on the left side of the body is not exactly the same as what goes on the right side. So honor this side as a novel, unique experience, letting your breath be your guide as you settle in here for about 30 seconds longer. Taking an opportunity to roll on and off of that left hip in whatever expression you have achieved, echoing the work we did earlier and reinforcing how flexible our body is when we are willing to dedicate discipline to it, stillness and movement combined. So let your hands come under your shoulders, tuck the toes behind you, and meet back in downward facing dog. Our last opportunity to play and your opportunity to get any movement that you might need before our final relaxation. So follow your intuition, trust your inner yogi, get playful here, whether you want to try a handstand, whether you just want to pedal and nod with me, whether you're already ready to take a full body stretch on your back, whether you need to move through vinyasa flow. You've got 3 breaths. Closing whatever exploration you've taken. Go ahead and draw your attention towards your hands, stacking elbows, wrists, and shoulders. You'll widen your knees down to drop back into tabletop. Relax the toes, sit your bottom to your heels, and find child's pose. Palms open to receive good fortune. Forehead drops to the mat. Jaw softens. Finding variations that work for you, drawing hands closer to the face or even behind you. We settle into child's pose here to activate the pineal gland, a gland that is the master gland for our whole endocrine system, also a seat of imagination and intuition. So notice any colors that you might see behind your eyes, and just let yourself relax in a way that the electromagnetic field around the head can potentially unify and harmonize with that around the heart. Just 3 more exhales here. This shape is also a nice complement to any tension that might have arrived in the back. So stretching your arms out in front of you, you can take an opportunity to walk them to the left side, pushing especially through the right hip, keeping a nice gentle stretch from the low back across the back, all the way through the arms. Walking the arms out through the center, same idea, walking the fingertips to the right side, pushing through that left hip to get a smooth stretch from the hip across the back, down the arm. Walking your arms back towards the middle, tuck your chin and roll upward, rolling your shoulders behind you, placing hands on thighs. We're in hero's pose for 2 more exhales. Good work. Kick your legs out from underneath you. Find a spot on the ground for our final twist and closing meditation. So let your legs be happy out below you, just wiggling fingers and toes, totally settling in here. Rock your hips side to side. Normally we do this facing down. It's a little bit easier. Good work. Bend through the knees, stamp the feet below the bottom, just a couple inches away, and then turn your palms down to support you, rolling shoulders underneath you. We're gonna lift the hips up and off the ground ever so slightly to drop them towards the right, just 3 inches or so from where they were. That gentle gesture is gonna make our twist feel even better. So stretch your arms out like a T if space allows for it, and drop your knees to the left side, looking to the right. This particular variation, just a couple inches off the midline, is going to more readily stretch the hip flexor. So that's why I chose it today. If this little nuance doesn't feel good for you in the back, feel free to skip it or return upright and readjust before dropping into your twist here. We have 2 more breaths. Maybe letting your top leg stack a little more sincerely, getting a different dynamic through the middle back. Options, options, options. Let the gaze go overhead and side to side before releasing through the middle body. So knees will come upright and hands will return back to the body. Press through the feet to lift the hips off the ground, across the middle and to the other side, just 3 inches or so further than they might be naturally. And drop the knees to the right side as you stretch your arms out and look to the left. At least 3 breaths here. Making sure both shoulders are connected to the ground. You might nuance here by stacking that top leg a little more stable on top of the other, changing the dynamic across the low back and across the hips. Let the gaze go overhead and side to side before leaving this space. An opportunity to shift the large thoughts from the small thoughts here today. So knees come back upright, hips shift back towards the middle. Draw all knees into the chest and your arms around your knees. Drawing your forehead towards your knees. We're making a tight energy ball, all the energy in our body, trying to squeeze, 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 imagining a little magical point at our belly button, everything coming in towards that point, crown of the head, toes, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And inhale, release. As you take in that fresh air, let your limbs rest down onto the ground, a little bit of movement through the fingers and toes as we arrive. It's an energy boosting relaxation today. So soften the jaw, soften the eyes, let the shoulders, hips, and heels be held. Trusting the ground to support you, trusting your mind to not attach to any thoughts here, just breathing easily into a meditative space, a space where we thank our body for its various capacities, that we recognize it for its multiple dimensions, so that we might consciously thank our toes, our feet, for balance and the ability to move through life. That our attention might stretch up the legs with radiant colors of red, imagery of roots. Drawing your attention to your belly button, the space below it and above it, imagining a digestive fire that is not just nourished by food, but also by confidence and willpower. Manipura chakra literally means a city of jewels, and Svadhisthana chakra below it translates to one's own place. So one's own place connects to the city of jewels within our body here. Drawing our attention to the heart space, to the chest, to your breath. Maybe your inhales will become a little longer and a little fuller here, in touch and aware with how magical the body really is. Drawing your attention to your forehead, to the space between your eyebrows, to this ability to go within and be in any place we want, that some of us can run wild in our imaginations, whereas others are still discovering it. So that you might take 1 minute here to nourish yourself in the way that only you know best. Accepting whatever state of relaxation you have achieved. Go ahead and wiggle fingers and toes. And draw your arms around yourself, giving yourself a big hug. Option to send that hug to somebody you know or love. The hug releases to a full body stretch, which rolls you onto one side, a tiny ball shape, the traditional place to return, before closing our practice by seating upright together. So this is a great practice because it will continue to open your hips throughout the day. There's a small chance some soreness might come later. Please do share your feedback, repeat the sequence often, and trust that any portion of today's practice is worth repeating in your home practice. Let's close our practice now with the healing sound of Om, A-O-M, to fuel the sound. Inhale to stretch your arms upward. Exhale, elbows nice and wide. Inhale, arms come overhead, touching and drawing through heart center, where we create sound together now. I honor you as a reflection of me, and thank you for your practice. Namaste.